So what sort of oysters are they? What type are they?
Yeah, don't know. Best they got, though.
Terry Shelley and his crewmates are a very rare breed. They are amongst the handful of Louisiana fishermen still able to ply their trade.
They look good, see? See the young ones on them right now?
Yeah.
And you can tell they're growing. See, that's the sharpness of the beak.
The future for these oysters and the men who earn a living from them is hanging in the balance. Right now, it's spawning time. So if the oil came in, this would be the worst time?
Yeah, we'll lose the whole, if the oil comes in, we'd probably lose the whole year of the spat. You know, to take next year it would show. You wouldn't have no little ones.
Oysters are a $300 million a year industry here in Louisiana, employing thousands in small family businesses. If the oil comes in here, what happens to your job?
We don't have none.
When the Deepwater Horizon rig exploded a month ago, killing 11 workers, it left oil gushing from ruptured pipelines deep below the surface. Ever since, a desperate race has been waged across the Gulf of Mexico. BP and government agencies have been trying to stop the oil polluting one of the most fertile fishing grounds in the world. But it's a nigh-on impossible task.
So right here what you're seeing is the futile attempt to protect this estuary from the impending oil.
John Henderson is from a local environmental watchdog. He says the response hasn't been nearly big enough. Why is it futile?
Because the booms are only designed to mitigate against a 2-foot tide. The first day that we went out on boat, the seas were at 5 to 7 feet. I feel like there's been a history in oil disasters of them really trying to make things seem a lot better than they really are. Officials really trying to make things seem a lot better than they really are.
With rough weather hampering the containment effort, oil soon began washing up on the barrier islands off Louisiana. Commercial fishing had to be suspended. Up and down the coast, shrimp fishermen had been spending big in preparation for the season.
It's costly. You know, the rigging, you're probably looking at $20,000 with a rigging.
Jerome Jones is a 4th-generation shrimp fisherman. He says the spill will be devastating for an industry that was already struggling.
Possibly a lot of fishermen probably won't be in the business after this. Because, I mean, they have nothing to look for. Because, see, they've been bombarded with Hurricane Katrina, Rita, Gustav, Ike. Last year, we came right back and we had to strike because of low prices on shrimp. That we couldn't afford to go out because of high diesel prices and low prices for our catch. Here you go, Ben. Now we hit with an oil spill, you know, and nobody have came forward with a contingency plan and say, hey, guys, your livelihood's going to go on one way or the other.
With the fisheries closed, there's nothing for these men to do but support each other. Anton Marinkovic is another fisherman who migrated here from Croatia when he was 19. These waterways were where he began his new life. But after years of hard work and hard luck, he's now at the end of his tether.
Nothing has been like this ever, you know. That is so bad, you know, and the more day passes, it's just getting worse and worse and creates so much anxiety and fear and stress that I just can't cope with that still.
Hurricane Katrina and its many predecessors have forced Anton to restart from scratch 5 times. Today he's decided to move on. giving up any hope of fishing in Louisiana waters.
It just drives everybody crazy, especially me, you know, and I'm just, you know, taking medication for this stress, you know, because I just can't take it. It's so much just to think how you're going to make a livelihood, I mean, to support the family, and, you know, it's just so hard, very hard.
With the fisheries closing fast, many have offered their boats to BP for the clean-up effort. But for the vast majority, they are still waiting to find out if they are needed.
So we're talking about probably a number of 1,000 boats, you know, in this parish of Plaquemine, and all of them won't be used on this job. And so what do? How do they pay their bills? And that's what people are really concerned about. Do they really care about us? You know, and in any situation like this, you know, you start the blame game, and the frustration mount more, and it get more intense as time go by. Nothing's really done, and these people are just sitting here docked up when they normally would be out there working, making a living.
We know that there's going to be an impact here to the local fishermen from, you know, what their career is, because this is the start of a fishing season for them.
Marty Powers is a spokeswoman for BP.
So we do hope to report to you very soon that we have been able to be very active and stop this out in the water.
She's in the fishing town of Venice, trying to talk up the oil company's response in the midst of this highly damaging crisis.
It's definitely not a great push for your reputation, especially for a company like ours who has definitely had a green agenda. But I think with the amount of response that we have ramped up, I think that we show that we are a responsible partner, a responsible company.
That's a claim BP's critics find hard to swallow.
They've been fined for lots of other safety violations. They're even on probation in Alaska because they were charged criminally for safety violations. So no, they can't be trusted.
Since the spill began, the US government has been in high-level negotiations with BP over its liability.
How'd the meeting go, sir? Can you talk to us at all?
It was a very constructive dialogue.
Who's going to pay for this?
Excuse me, please.
So far, CEO Tony Hayward has agreed to foot the clean-up costs and compensation claims. Along with possible punitive damages awards, the final bill could easily top $10 billion. How much has BP budgeted for this?
We have not budgeted for this. But again, the cost right now is not the focus. The focus has really been response.
That response has hit numerous hurdles. Initial plans to cap the leak with this 100-ton steel dome failed, leaving the oil gushing into the sea and the environmental costs mounting. An increasingly angry American public is demanding answers.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give to the Senate Committee on Energy and Natural Resources shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
This week, executives from BP and two of its contractors were summoned to a Senate hearing in Washington. The blame game began immediately.
At the outset, I need to emphasise that Halliburton, as a service provider to the well owner, is contractually bound to comply with the well owner's instructions.
Why did Transocean's blowout preventer, the key fail-safe mechanism, fail to shut in the well and release the rig?
With those involved all looking to shift responsibility, one question was firmly in the spotlight.
Will BP pay?
Tony Hayward, our CEO, has been very clear, and we are going to pay all legitimate claims. All legitimate claims.
And define legitimate, please, for us.
Substantiated claims.
I would expect that we'll have a fair amount of litigation over this case. That's indeed the case. We already have a couple of dozen of these personal injury cases filed in the Eastern District of Louisiana. We expect a bunch of natural resource damage claims to be filed, and we don't know yet what the states are going to do by way of filing as well.
Stephen Rohde is a Washington-based litigation lawyer with Earth Justice, a leading ecological law firm. He's been alarmed by how cosy the oil industry and its regulators have been, even granting BP a waiver on assessing the environmental impact of its Deepwater Horizon rig.
Got it. Okay. So I think a lot of us were surprised to learn this. This just surfaced after the accident. They received some sort of a categorical exclusion from environmental analysis, and it's obviously our view, and of course hindsight's 2020, that this was a very imprudent thing for the government to have been doing.
Those cosy relationships are now under scrutiny, and pro-drilling politicians are worried for the future of the offshore oil industry.
And if we can't continue to operate and convince people that we can perform safely, then not only will BP not be out there, but the Transoceans won't be there to drill the rigs, and the Halliburtons won't be there to provide for the cementing.
It seems to me there clearly has been a tremor in the force here as a result of this accident. We have the prospect now even of senators, as you say, who have been friendly toward the idea of outer continental shelf drilling, being concerned about the inability to prevent blowouts and to prevent pollution.
Back in Louisiana, the containment effort goes on. Today, the Governor of Louisiana, Bobby Jindal, is overseeing the deployment of yet another specialist barge for the cleanup.
The strategy needs to be adaptable. As the oil gets closer in, they need to be able to move those resources. And so the great news is by having these barges out there, the jackup barges, allows them 24/7 to deploy that secondary line of defense. And let's make no mistake about it, this leaking oil has the potential to absolutely jeopardize Louisiana's way of life. This is not just about stopping the leak and cleaning up the oil. It's also about restoring our fisheries, these barrier islands. It's about restoring our way to earn a living down here.
As the oil slick continues to grow, so too does the environmental damage, and more fisheries will have to close. The handful of Louisiana fishermen who still have a livelihood know their future is literally blowing in the wind.
Current NOAA forecast models bring the oil to the west, and if that were to happen, it would wrap around the Mississippi River Delta and threaten those inland waterways where the oyster beds are and where the oyster fishermen pull those oysters from.
Right now, I'm lucky. Right, very lucky right now.
But it wouldn't take much to change.
No, just a couple of winds in the wind in the wrong direction for a few days, and we'll all have it. Everything will change again.